Welcome to the Friends of Chamber Music Troy, and I'm Andrea Cunliffe. With me today is Barry Shiffman, who is the director of the Banff International String Quartet competition, a really important event in the lives of musicians. But I welcome you, Barry. Welcome to Friends of Chamber Music Troy. Tell me a
Great.
little about what this exciting event is.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, and it's nice to be able to speak to you and to connect with the Friends of Troy, who have been presenting winners of the Banff competition for a long time. So I appreciate that support. I want to jump right in and reflect on your comment that it's a very important event for quartets, and no doubt it is. I would say maybe the most important event of its kind in the world for quartets. But I think what makes the Banff International String Quartet so important for the quartets is that it is as important for the audience as it is for the quartets, and that is the essence of the success of this competition. So the art form of string quartet relies on presenting the music in front of a living and breathing audience. So we're very blessed at Banff to have this extraordinary place in the Rocky Mountains, surrounded by gorgeous nature, and to have an infrastructure at the Banff Centre, which is one of the largest art centres in Canada, to present the competition. And the result of that is hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people descend on this mountain town to take in the week-long competition. And as a result, the musicians that are presenting in the competition perform in a way that I think is heightened because of the fact that these are just ordinary, wonderful concerts with a full house. And so everything we do at Banff Centre at this competition is focused on removing the unnatural aspect of being a competition, and we focus on the artist experience and the audience experience. And then, of course, we have this extraordinary jury that we assemble, and they have a task to choose the winners and award the prizes. But I think it's the effort that we make at removing the unnatural.
What do you mean by that? You need to tell me what you mean by that.
Well, we're musicians. We're not gladiators. And I think there is an uncomfortable dissonance with the need and the obvious benefits of running a competition, with the fact that music making and art making is not designed for a competitive environment. So, it's not, we don't go head to head. We don't see who crosses the line fastest. We create an environment where the musicians can come and do their best work. And then a jury decides where we're going to invest our resources in our winner, of course. And those resources that we have for the winning ensemble are vast. So if you win the Banff competition, of course, you receive a large cash prize. You receive extensive residencies at the Banff Centre where we record. We invest in recording. We present you at the Banff International String Quartet Festival. We work with management in Europe and tour you across Europe on multiple tours. We work with management in the United States and Canada and tour you across the United States and Canada. And we have an extraordinary partnership with our friends at Southern Methodist University, who run the Peak Fellowship, which is an opportunity for our laureates to visit Southern Methodist a number of times over a 2-year period and get paid handsomely to do that type of residency work. So the total amount of money that a first place winner in Banff has brought to their prize, it's getting close to about $500,000 in concerts, residencies, recordings, etc. It's an extraordinary opportunity. You apply and you go through a rigorous pre-selection, which we do with another separate jury from the competition, and we decide the 10 groups that are being invited. What I will say that I think makes something very special about Banff is that no quartet comes to Banff and is eliminated after their first performance. You perform 5 times before the audience, before the jury, and then there is a cut, and we invite 3 quartets to the finals. And all of the quartets that don't make the final round, so that's 7 quartets that are not invited to the final round, they each receive a career development grant of several $1,000s, and they each will have had their hotels and their meals and their flights covered. So it really is more of a festival for any quartet that's lucky enough to be invited. On top of that, every quartet, regardless of whether you make the finals or not make the finals, is recorded by Banff Centre in video and audio, and is presented on Violin Channel, on the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation radio, and we also work with a film company, Riddle Films, out of Toronto, to capture very high quality individual profile pieces and almost and short performance video shot with multiple cameras. So our whole effort is to bring all the resources we can to support these young quartets, and to simultaneously give an experience to our audience that is second to none, so that they leave at the end of the week and have been fully immersed in the music, in the artistry of the young players, in the myriad of ancillary topics that we explore through our lecture series, and most importantly, the community that develops. So the shared meals, the shared stories. If you come into the bar at night after an entire day of music making, so an audience that will have heard maybe 2 or 3 performances, had meals together, attended lecture, then it's 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night, you come into the bar, and we have set up a stage in the bar, kind of inspired by our friends at the Esterhazy Palace in Eisenstadt, where Haydn created the idea of the string quartet. And we have 2 violins, violas, cellos sitting there. We have all the Haydn quartets in a pile. And anybody that wants to come into the bar and read Haydn quartets, grab an instrument, grab some friends, and do that. That could be members of the jury. It could be members of competing quartets. The only rule we have is that a competing quartet should not play with members of the jury. But it's not unusual to see members of the jury, swigging a beer, where at the other end of the room, quartets are jamming with random audience members that have flown in from Amsterdam or Calgary or wherever. And so there's this fun juxtaposition between the kind of highbrow and lowbrow.
Formality.
30 minutes prior to being in the bar, you're afraid to sneeze because a quartet's playing on the stage, and we want to tell whether they were interpreting that dot on the page of Beethoven as a dot or a dash, and then 30 minutes later we're just having a quartet reading party. And I think it's very important that art not be put on a pedestal and left to die up there. That we have to remember that this music was written by living, breathing composers, and there has to be a little bit of connection to that love of just amateur music making that we as professionals never want to lose.
That's a lovely thought. You're a musician as well. You play the violin and viola, am I right?
Yes, I play both. Yep, of course.
And you started when you were very young.
Yeah, I think most professional players probably did start when they were quite young. I started when I was 6, and chamber music was a big part of my childhood, and I grew up studying at the Royal Conservatory in Toronto, where chamber music was a big part of, as I say, of the program. And life goes full circle. I now direct the chamber music program at the Royal Conservatory and work with all sorts of wonderful young musicians, some quartets, some, anyways, yeah, all sorts of wonderful, beautiful players.
Did you
Um,
come from a musical family?
I came from a large family. My dad was an amateur musician, and my mother played a little bit of piano. Um, but there was nothing in the music was not. Nobody pursued it at a very, very high level. No.
This quartet, the Isidore String
Yes.
Quartet, amazing group of men.
Yes.
Um,
Amazing.
they're
Yes.
very young. And I think both violinists started picking up a violin at a year and a half.
Yes, I've heard crazy stories about that. Yeah, but I have to say I'm just thrilled that Troy is going to get to hear the Isidore Quartet. This is we always hope that we're going to have spectacular groups in Banff, and I think for the most part we have. I mean, if you look at our previous winners, the Viano Quartet, the Dover Quartet, the St. Lawrence Quartet, the Miro Quartet, et cetera, et cetera. Um, the Isidore Quartet really captured the imagination of the public when they were there, and you're right, they are very young. They were very young just a year ago during the competition. But what I think is interesting is how many concerts they've done and how much they've grown in that year since winning Banff. It's they've had incredible um, growth and opportunity and have done a remarkable job of taking full advantage of all of those opportunities. And they just sound beautiful. They sound fantastic.
Well, I understand that there was quite a reaction from the audience at the end of their final piece.
Yes, it always is.
Oh, is it? Okay.
It always is. The audience is incredibly enthusiastic.
Oh, wonderful.
And they definitely choose their winners. We don't give an audience prize. We never will while I'm there. Not because we don't believe in one, but because it's not always that the audience agrees with what the jury selection is. And so our job is to support the jury and support the Banff prize. But it's always lovely when the winning group also has the obvious support of the audience in the way that Isidore did. They were really favorites in a from the audience perspective. I think we can safely say.
What would you say was made them unique or made them specifically special?
I don't like to add my personal voice because I don't vote in the competition. I like to keep a little bit of objectivity. But what I can say about the Isidore is that there is an extraordinary amount just of an unusual technical ease. So they're stunningly gifted instrumentalists to begin with, and then there was a kind of generosity in how they made music together, and there was a real freedom that that was unusual, and a kind of feeling of almost spontaneity, and that was, I thought, for me, was quite surprising as a group was so young, and so kind of magic things happen in their interpretations because because they were so comfortable and at ease on their instruments and had this compelling vision to share, and were somehow remarkably able to do that. They studied at the Juilliard School with Joel Krosnick, who's a dear friend of mine, and actually I studied with Mr. Krosnick when I was in the St. Lawrence Quartet, and we worked with the Juilliard Quartet, and so I felt quite connected in that sense, that they came from a similar experience of working with a mentor that I had also worked with, and there's a fun that they have on stage. I think you'll soon see. There are four gifted young men who love what they're doing, and I think that's that's quite special.
Do you think that the work that they're doing, touring and performing all over well, I think all over the world, they've been in Europe
Yeah,
certainly.
yeah,
Do you think
several
that's
times.
going to change anything about them, or do you think it'll give them strength? Have you heard them recently?
Yes, I did hear them recently. In fact, I shared the stage with them at the Toronto Summer Music Festival. We actually performed together, and I've heard them many times. I heard them. I presented them at my festival in Rockport, at the Rockport Chamber Music Festival in Rockport, Massachusetts. So I've heard them a lot, and I've heard many of their broadcasts. And yes, I think that we all change. And I think what they're experiencing is exactly what you want, is that the number of concerts, the number of hours rehearsing, the number of shared experiences together, all of that contributes and makes them better. Um, so yeah, we're seeing exactly what we thought we would see, which is the quartet is just yeah, it's a much better group than it was even a year ago.
Oh my
And
goodness.
yeah.
That's such good news. What do you think's in the future for them?
Oh, well, I think I don't know specifically. I think if they want to continue as a string quartet, they're on a fantastic trajectory. So they
Hmm.
have that. I think, that I think they could have a really um, uh, long-lived and spectacular career, and we hope that for them. But I, there are all sorts of things that will happen to this group that they know about and that they don't know about, and so it's as long as they keep this sense of joy and enthusiasm, the rest will follow. It's very difficult in the string quartet world, of course, because unless you are lucky enough to get um, a university residency or a residency at a large institution, your reliance on concert income alone um, makes it a very, very difficult career for longevity. So I think look at the careers of the successful ensembles in North America, the successful quartets, and um, you will see the university or conservatory quartet in residence positions behind those groups. I know in my own experience, having been in the St. Lawrence for 18 years, it was the appointment at Stanford University that allowed us to continue to grow and to have a financial base and build a home and lay down roots that um, I think were the reasons why the St. Lawrence was able to continue. Similarly, the Miro Quartet, the Brentano Quartet, the Borromeo Quartet, all the Dover Quartet now at Curtis, all these quartets that have the support of those appointments. I think we hope that the Isidore Quartet will similarly have something that comes along that gives them that support and that base. I think that'll be really crucial for their longevity.
I know that COVID took a swipe at the arts in general. We lost a lot of support, and quite rightly, we were all quarantined up. But do you think that there's enough support for the arts generally? And why I know Canada is probably a little bit different than the United States, maybe a lot different. But do you feel that there needs to be more support for the arts in general?
Yeah. Well, first of all, let me reflect a little bit on the misconception that Canada is this magical place with stunning amounts of government support. It's not the scene at all. Um, Unfortunately, I mean, I work full time at the Royal Conservatory, where where um, uh, a small fraction of the budget of the organization comes from government. At Banff Center, it was about 25% government, the rest self-earned revenue. And during the pandemic, the amount of government money that flowed, and there was government money that flowed, didn't compare to what flowed in the US. So I think we saw arts organizations in the US being treated quite generously, I think, by the federal government in a number of those COVID support programs. Do I think there's enough support for the arts? No, there's never enough support for the arts. And where I think we're seeing a decimation in art support in both Canada and the United States is in the support of arts education in the public school system. And that's where we're seeing, the investments diminish, and that is a horrible thing. We're seeing lots of very good stories of supporting the arts in certain areas. I think in the many programs that have been providing support to underrepresented groups, we're seeing the fruits of those labors. And we saw that in Banff, where certain musicians that had come through different programs that had supported them, was wonderful to see them on the stage doing remarkable things that they were doing. And my own work here in Canada at the Royal Conservatory, we've just launched the Oscar Peterson program, which again, is bringing arts education to underserved communities in the Toronto area. In Rockport, one of our board members was a founding supporter of Project STEP, which has done remarkable work in the Boston area. So I think that's good to see. We need to see more of that. And on a positive note, I think it's fair to say that there has been quite a bit of growth in areas of chamber music, particularly the festival model. So I think that the growth of the chamber music festival has been rather enormous in the last 25 years. If you look at an example like Rockport Music in Massachusetts, right? That was a few weekends a summer, and then the board miraculously raised money, built a $28 million home on the ocean's 12-month-a-year presenting organization. La Jolla just built a new hall. In Canada, there's the Toronto Summer Music, which has had incredible growth year over year, and they're just festival. So I remember when I was in the St. Lawrence Quartet, we were busy from Memorial Day weekend through Labor Day, as the festival environment just grew and grew and grew. That'll have a direct impact on the career of a young quartet like the Isidore, who will be busy in the many festival opportunities that are doing so well. And that's a very different scene than the orchestra scene that is has its many challenges and struggles. The chamber music festival scene is very healthy right now.
It's such good news, really.
Yeah.
Good news.
Going back to Troy, it's the organizations like yours, the kind of smaller chamber music presenters that dot the country, that really form the backbone of the support of so many careers. And I'm just very glad that you guys have survived COVID and that you're back at it and presenting concerts.
Absolutely. And it's great to see so much outreach as well, and
Yes.
getting to the community and giving, certainly young people who don't normally or have the opportunity to understand classical music, to be able to see it and go,
Right.
wow, and relate to who's playing,
Right.
who are the musicians on the stage. It's important
Right.
for them to feel, oh, you can relate to that.
I'm
Cool.
glad you mentioned the outreach. I think you'll find with the Isidore Quartet. This is a group that is passionate about connecting with people. That is a real love, whether it be the audience, whether it be a home of seniors or a young public school or whatever it is. They are game to engage those people, and they're very gifted at it. So I think that's going to be very exciting for you.
Well, your explanation of how they enjoy what they do and it sort of radiates out into the
Yeah.
audience. I can imagine they'd be wonderful in the
Yeah,
community. Just
it will be. It will be.
I can't thank you enough for your time, Barry. I wish you all the luck in the world with everything you do. You've been such a support for these people and for musicians and for the audiences all over Canada, the US, and I'm sure abroad as well.
Oh, it's a great privilege, and I'm glad to be able to do it. So thank you again, and enjoy the concert with the laureates of the Banff competition, the amazing Isidore.
I hope so. I'm so excited about it. And I hope I'll get out to Banff someday. I'd love to.
Please, yeah, you've got to come visit. Yeah, you'll love it.
Wonderful. Thanks so much for your time.